Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today I want to do a really fun tutorial of painting a bee because I have started this series which I want to call Great Pollinators, especially because I don't want to only include bees in it. I want to include wasps and hornets and all kinds of other pollinators on this hexagonal nara paper that I've just gotten. So I thought it'd be fun to do a little how-to with my video of my bee painting. Before I get started on this tutorial, I have to apologize because this week I was intending to also release an unboxing video, but I must postpone my unboxing for a little bit. Yes, I got my nara order. Yes, I videotaped the unboxing, but I'm not going to make a video of it because my order got kind of mixed up and I didn't really get what I was supposed to. So I'm putting it off. I got my next nara package coming in the next couple of weeks probably, so there will be an unboxing. It just will be a little bit further down the road. Okay, so for this tutorial today, you're going to need a piece of non-porous paper like Yupo paper, but I suggest using nara paper because with the erasing technique that I'm going to use today, like a lifting off, you really want something that's totally non-staining like nara, because you can do it with Yupo, but it's not 100% non-porous. There will be a stain, so it won't be nearly as pretty. But essentially, go with any non-porous thing that you have. A tile will work as well. You know, if you've got ceramic tiles, they're pretty much on par with the whole 100% non-staining thing. You'll need your inks, obviously. I'll put up a list of the colors that I used, although I'm not going to say that you have to use the same colors that I use. You can go with your heart on that, but I will give you a color list. I also used my syringe. I always use my syringe. Make sure you got a syringe, even if you only have one. I only have one, but I use it all the time. I use it every single time that I paint. You'll need alcohol. It doesn't take a lot to do this painting because it's just a small little study and there's only a little bit of wet on wet. So that's the only part that takes any amount of alcohol. And really, I think in the painting of this little picture, I filled my syringe maybe twice. So that gives you an idea as to like how much alcohol it takes to make this painting, really. Okay, so let's get down to it. I'll show you my color list and we'll chat a little bit about how to get started. And then at the end of the video, we'll talk a little bit about what is coming up next. Okay, so this is the reference photo that I used. Many thanks to Pamela Carson, who took this beautiful photo. And now I'm going to show you my painting that I made with it and the colors that I used. So this is my study, and I used turquoise, indigo, and moss in the sky portion on the bottom. I used lettuce, everglades, some black in the foliage on top. You'll notice I changed the background from the photo because I wanted to have blue sky behind this bee. So I left the greenery at the top, but I added sky in the bottom part of the composition instead of more foliage. Okay, so for the flower and the bee, I used dandelion, honeycomb, Dijon, espresso, and some more black. I also used a white gel pen at the end to highlight a little bit of the wings, and also to add a little bit more white furriness to my bee's head. Okay, so make sure you got your paper, your syringe, your inks, your brushes, and let's get this show on the road. First, right off the bat, I'm going to start on the bottom portion of my paper with some alcohol. I've made my drawing of bee with graphite. Go ahead and make as detailed a drawing as you want to in the beginning, but know that you will erase a lot of that graphite in your lifting off, so don't be sad when it's gone. You'll just need to redraw that portion later, which is okay. It's not the end of the world. You were able to do it the first time, and you're able to do it the second time. So I'm starting with turquoise and moss here, just a few drops, and a good deal of alcohol, both from my syringe and also from my spray bottle as I get it going. And I just want to move the ink around on
the bottom half of the page. It's totally okay if this ink flows over the B because we're going to erase that later, but just try not to get it everywhere because you don't want to have to erase the whole thing. Think about the ink that you'll waste. So try to keep it to the bottom half. As you do this, hold your paper on an angle so that the ink can drip down, and hold it sideways so that the vertical dripping down turn into horizontal lines when you turn it to look at your composition. This will give a nice calm sky impression instead of it looking like the sky is falling or melting into oblivion. And don't skimp on this stage either. Take as much time as you want to let your sky flow around on the bottom half of your paper and see what it looks like. And remember that when you're working wet and wet like this, the ink will relax a little bit and change in shape as it dries on your paper. So move things around, find what you like, and when you feel like it's at a place that it looks nice and sky-like and you want to leave it, just lay it down flat and let it dry. Once it's dry, you can take a paper towel wet with alcohol, or a felt pad wet with alcohol, or anything that you want to use as an eraser to lift the ink out of the bee and the petals of the flower. Don't worry about lifting it out of the tips of the bee's wings that are sticking out because you'd see the sky color behind them. Don't make too clean of a job of it right now because you'll need to finish it off later. So just clear out the most of it and then get ready to work on the foliage. I'm doing this with a felt pad here, without the stamper. Sometimes I use the stamper, but honestly, I really just like using the crumpled pad in my fingers like a savage. I don't know why. So make sure that you use gloves when you do this because not only is the ink extremely staining to your hands, but think about it, the ink is super, super flammable. And if you get it on your hands and then go and, I don't know, make supper after painting, you could light your hand on fire, literally. So you have to be really careful. So I'm wearing gloves here. And I'm just stamping some Everglades and some lettuce over top of my foliage area. Then I'm going to go brush, stamp, brush, stamp. I'm brushing in where I want the foliage to be darker with some nice Everglades. I'm keeping the ink relatively dry here so that the dark doesn't flow all over the place. But then after, I'll go back in with the stamp and mess it all up again. I really like doing this technique for background foliage and stuff. Stamp, 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 stamp. Brush, 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 brush. Stamp, stamp, brush, brush. It's fun. Here I'm going to go in with a little bit of black in my black brush, the only brush that I put black on. And I'm going to deepen up the darkest areas in the foliage and then probably fix that back up with my stamp again to make it nice and muted. When I'm happy with my foliage, I'll turn my paper and start to erase. Now, can you guys see the mistake that I've made here? I have obviously touched my paper when the ink was still wet. I have 3 little perfect fingerprints on the bottom of my paper that I need to fix. And I have to do that before I go any further. So I'm going to go in with a little bit of my darkest blue color here. It's indigo mixed with some turquoise. So it gives me a nice deep royal blue. And at first I was just going to do some stylized stuff down here. But then I realized that I thought that was going to, or I feared that might take focus away from my bees. So I just melted that right down and did exactly the same thing I did in the beginning and fixed it. So before we go any further, we're going to look back at our reference photo because we're going to start on the flower first. So take a look at the tonal differences in the flower petals, look at the darks, the mediums, and the lights. You'll notice that there's not a lot of really dark. It's mostly just mid and light tones. Looking back on my painting right now while I'm working on the video, I feel like my flower is lacking a good deal of contrast. I should have worked on the values a little bit more, but it's a practice. So here I'm washing the whole area with some alcohol in my brush that I use for yellow, and then I'm going to go in with some dandelion and start working on some lights where that nice bright yellow color is. You can see on my palette I've got from left to right. I have Dijon, which kind of looks black, but it's not. Dandelion, honeycomb, and latte, which I know I didn't say before, but I decided after that I wanted to use that a little bit in my bee, so I included it in my palette. So that's going to be those 4 colors I'm going to be using for my flower and for my bee. You can see I'm really just roughly blocking in the tonal differences. I'm using the Dijon for my mid-tones and the dandelion chiefly for my light tones. I will also be using honeycomb in between the two because it's a nice rosy, really, really, really warm, nearly orangey yellow. And I want to include that in between my light and mid-tones. This next part while I'm working on the flower, I'm going to accelerate that a little bit more than it already is because, well, it took me a while to develop those values and I don't want you to sit around for everything. Well, if you're painting this while watching it, just go ahead and pause the video while you develop your own values. Okay, now that we're done with the flower, we're going to look back at the reference photo because we're about to embark on the actual bee itself in his adorable splendor. So here he is. Absorb it. Check out the bee. Think about the lights, the mid-tones, and the darks that you see, and let's get down to it. I'm going to start off similarly, just with some clean alcohol, or mostly clean alcohol. You can see it's a little golden tone because it's the yellow brush I was using. Don't sweat it. It doesn't have to be perfectly clear. And I'm just using a little bit of latte. Very, 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 I say watered down, but you know, alcoholed down, boozed down, if you will. Latte to fill in a little bit first. And then you can see I'm just going in with some really dilute dandelion and honeycomb to establish the values in the lovely golden fur on my bee. Now you can see I've got some espresso going to work on those darker brown tones in the fur. You can see I'm really just dabbing with my brush, kind of a pointillism kind of thing, so that I don't get too much of a brush stroke, and I'm not using a lot of ink either because I don't want it to bloom out. Just patiently, little by little, build up those yellow tones in the fur on the bee. Take your time, make sure that your brush is not too wet, and if it does look too wet, just go and absorb that alcohol with your brush and add some more color on over top of it, going slowly and don't rush it. When you like the values, start in on the dark areas with your black brush, darken up the darker tones on the yellow area, and start filling in the black on this bee's abdomen. Also, don't worry about brushiness at the edges of your bee's abdomen. Remember, he's furry, so you can go with the liberating brushiness and not worry that it's going to look unprofessional because a bee looks furry. There's no way around it. Now, I'm taking my same black brush and I'm filling in the darkest areas on the wings and on my bee's legs. And also, don't worry too much about staying too specific on your bee's legs because a couple extra brush strokes on the sides will just add to the furriness. So don't be too crazy about it and just have fun with it. Now, when you're painting, it is totally up to you, but I'm going to say it, you can be as specific or as general with the segments on your bee's wings as you want to. I was not particularly realistic. I did not grid out this bee's wings. I just kind of drew the sections on the wings in freehand, and no, the two wings are not mirror images of each other, and you can go to that extent if you want, but there is no absolute need to, and I didn't really feel like it. So I just drew them in and had fun with it, and I encourage you to do the same. But like I say, if you want it to look more, for lack of a better word, I say perfect, knock yourself out. Make it perfect. That's totally fine, but I was just going for fun. Your painting's done when you say it's done, and the level of particularity is yours to decide. Here, while you're painting the wings, remember that the wings are maybe not 100% transparent, but at least translucent. So where there is sky behind the wing, you will see it, and where there is leaf or petal behind the wing, you will see it. Maybe not in its entirety because it's broken up by the segments on the wing, but you can still see it back there. So don't worry about erasing all of the color behind it and making your wing white, because it would never look white. One, it's like a brown tinted wing, and it's got sections all over it, so it breaks up the image behind it. So keep that color back there and just work right over top of it. Here I'm using espresso. At times I'm using some more black, but for the most part, to fill in the darker areas of the wing, I'm just using the espresso. I really, really, really like that dark color, and I find espresso from Ranger is nearly the perfect shade for the color on a bee's wings. So I just went with it. Okay, so now I'm essentially just doing my finishing touches. So while I do that, let's chat a little bit about what's coming up soon. Soon I will have that awaited unboxing. It's going to be really great. As soon as it comes in, I will share it all with you. Plus, I can't wait because I've got new Nara black that I've never worked on before, and other hexagons that I'm going to work on my Great Pollinators series with. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you really liked this video. If you did, please like it and subscribe to my channel so that you do not miss a cool video. I will see you guys next time.